Welcome back, everyone, to another week of A to the K's WrestleTalk podcast. You're listening to Anthony, the devil's favourite demon, and I'm joined, as always, by Carl, the big blue machine, mostly because he won't let me call him a red. Hi, Carl. How are you this fine evening?
Well, I would be better if the Mighty Blues played less like the Shitey Blues. You might say they put some hard times on Carl and his family, but you don't know what hard times are, Daddy. Hard times are when the textile workers around this country are out of work, got 4 or 5 kids and can't pay their wages, can't buy the food. Hard times are when auto workers are out of work and they tell them go home. And hard times are when a man has worked a job for 30 years, and they give him a watch, kick him in the butt, and say, hey, a computer took your place, Daddy. That's hard times. That's hard times.
Oh, fantastic. These are getting better each week, Carl. I am thoroughly enjoying them.
But as for how I am, I'm not great because everything is shite. So there is that. But we're going to persevere because this isn't shit footy talk. This is wrestling.
And to our American audience, obviously, we're talking soccer.
Yeah.
It's not football to them. But
the toffees.
The toffees.
The toffees are shite.
It's a quality Yank accent, that, Carl.
Thank you.
So, we have another fun-filled week. Obviously, not so much when we talk about Raw and SmackDown, but we'll get on to that. There's been a nice little amount of different things coming up in the old news and rumours front. And, a few interesting points to talk about on there. And our other unique segments for the week, let's say, we're actually going to be talking about the 10 most iconic or memorable entrance themes. So this is not so much ones that we particularly like, oh, I love that song or something along that line. This is the type of thing that it's like, you know, the type of thing where the music hits and you're going to get a big sort of pop, or it's you know, it's just an iconic track. It's not just like some generic. I'm trying to say it without giving a specific example because we'll get into that in the segments, but it's that sort of thing where you know, what do we consider the most sort of iconic entrance music that you know, even if it hit today, you know, it certainly make us mark out. So that's the type of thing we're looking for with that one. But before we kick off on that segment, we'll talk about the news. So I'll kick off if I could, Carl.
Do it.
Yeah, cool. So the first one I've got is basically the speculation over Kairi Sane's future with WWE. So as we know, Kairi Sane lives in Japan. Her husband's in Japan, and there's been a lot of speculation that she's going to be heading back there. There was a lot of talk previously that obviously with WWE talking about their expansion of NXT, and they're going to have NXT, you know, Japan, NXT Germany, NXT, you know, there was a lot of talk that she was sort of going to be the face of, or, you know, certainly heading over that direction to sort of help bolster the what was going to be the NXT Japan sort of arm. Obviously, with everything that's going on with COVID-19, WWE have halted their sort of plans for that sort of worldwide expansion. So, I mean, we have seen her. We've seen her on Raws and SmackDown, certainly a lot longer than I expected to see her, because I think there was speculation in Mania that she wasn't going to continue on with the company. Mm-hmm. The reason this has become news this week is because some of you might remember that they put up a match card, champion versus champion. So we had Asuka versus Bayley. And when they put the match card up, originally they had Kairi Sane on the graphic and Sasha Banks on the graphic. And then without any sort of mention, and I think it was when they showed it on SmackDown, they've removed Kairi Sane but left Sasha Banks in that same graphic. So it's not that WWE have specifically said anything, but the fact that they've gone out of the way to remove Kairi Sane from the graphic would suggest, firstly, that she's not going to be at ringside, but secondly, it would make you wonder what is the actual plan, what's going on, because we haven't actually seen her with Asuka in a few weeks either. I think the last time was when there was that whole Nia Jax attack and a sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And that is another point. The last time we actually saw her was after that botch, and you know, hopefully that wasn't too bad an injury, but WWE are particularly squeamish about concussions. So could it be a potential on the injury front? I certainly hope not, and there's not been anything reported, but it just leads to all this sort of speculation, really. Have you read anything about this, Carl?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly not promising, is it, for the fact that, you know, she was included in the match graphic and then they take her off it, do you know what I mean? It seems like more work to take her off, do you know what I mean? So there's obviously
I think that's the interesting thing, is it's like, it's not even WWE's usual MO. They'd usually just leave her in and then, I don't know, mention it on the time.
Yeah, or just not mention it at all.
Or just not say anything at all.
Do you remember a guy called Roman Reigns at one point? He existed, right?
There's a prime example of WWE not really giving a fuck. They were still advertising Roman Reigns at Mania after they already knew. And like, we're not going to change it now, fuck that. Yeah, very strange. But
yeah, I don't know. It's a weird one, isn't it? Because she was obviously a casualty of them deciding to put the strap on Asuka because Becky.
I thought you were going to say a casualty of Nia.
Oh well, I mean, fucking who isn't a casualty of Nia? But once he decided to go with Asuka as the champ, she was kind of because like the Bailey and Sasha thing sort of makes sense a little bit because there's still that kind of underlying betrayal tone going on with them, and they made them tag champs and stuff. But there wasn't really, I guess, Kyrie had no part to play in this new Asuka role, I guess. So I don't know. It's definitely a strange one, but with the speculations of her, potentially going to Japan and stuff anyway, and it doesn't look good for her, does it?
I know. I mean, you can understand from a personal point of view. I mean, I know WWE is the big fish in the wrestling world, but she might prefer to be stay. That's where she lives. That's where she's from. So she might prefer to be in Japan. Maybe tackle New Japan pro wrestling in some way, and be closer to her husband and the like. It kind of makes sense from her point of view. So maybe her and herself is kind of like, well, yeah, I don't. She's done the WWE thing, so that's a tick in the wrestling biz. So she might not actually want to come back either. Not that she's gone, but it leads to this sort of thought because it's been a few weeks now, isn't it?
Yeah, interesting. I mean, she was quite good on NXT, and then kind of as usual, a bit of a casualty of the move to the main roster. So
do you know what the thing is? Like she has in a sense, but she's been one of the better ones on the, which is a sad fact, really. But she's been one of the better ones on the main roster as well. In the sense of like she hasn't been totally fucking ruined or buried in any way. It's not been the biggest run. She's not had a title shot or anything like that. But the tag work she did with Asuka was really good. And the Mania match was really good. So there's been some good work since she got up onto the main roster. But yeah, I certainly think because they wanted their interest in Asuka's definitely back in the singles division. And as you know, it bugs me that they're not really trying to bolster the women's tag division too much anyway. There's nothing there. Like, we might as well leave them on Bailey and Sasha because what else have we got?
Well, exactly.
So, Carl, what one have you got for us?
So, my first one of the night. So, there's been a minor change to Extreme Rules. So, obviously, WWE have got a bit of a hard on at the minute for giving each of the pay-per-views their own individual kind of strapline or tagline. And as we know, this Extreme Rules has been dubbed Extreme Rules Horror Show. However, that has now had a bit of a slight change. So, it's no longer Extreme Rules Horror Show. It's now the Horror Show at Extreme Rules. So, okay, interesting. I mean, as long as it's not the shit show.
Yeah, I mean, it very well could be.
If you look at the way the match card's shaping up, it might just be. But yeah, I don't know what's your take on this kind of you had like the greatest wrestling match ever or whatever that shit was. We've had In Your House, we've had Great American, and now we've got this weird strapline for Extreme Rules as well. So
I don't want to be this guy, right? Because I know people, are very polarized over WWE. Either love them or hate them at the minute for some reason. And I personally, we're fans of both shows, but I feel like this is a response to AEW because their names are a lot more fun and a lot more creative. And WWE have had the same sort of thing, like Extreme Rules or Hell in a Cell. And WWE got very lazy with the pay-per-views, and they literally just call it what it was. Like, it's not like a Hell in a Cell match at a pay-per-view. It's like, we'll just call the pay-per-view Hell in a Cell. Fuck it, And it got kind of lazy, and then you get AEW there with the clearly sort of mimicking their style by making the Great American Bash not a pay-per-view but modified NXT. And I don't know, it just feels almost like they're trying to be more playful with the names. And I think, again, in maybe in response to people enjoying the creativity around the AEW side of things. I don't know. Again,
yeah, I just
might cause a bit of an argument, that one, but
I just think for me it's weird the way, like, I mean, Great American Bash and In Your House aside, like, the two that stand out is this fucking the greatest wrestling match ever, a Backlash, like, and now this horror show, which I'm assuming is based off the the Bray Wyatt
I mean that's one particular, not a worry per se, but a strange move as well, as to go like, all right, so the name convention, the horror show element is purely based around this one booking you've done.
Exactly.
You know, it's like calling
it was the same with
you know,
Orton Edge. It's like
the
it's built.
Firefly WrestleMania. It's like, well, there was other
Yeah,
things.
exactly. It's like the whole show, like theme, is built around one match or something, and I don't know. I'm not a fan, to be
It's
honest.
almost slightly insulting, to be honest, because they're almost like telling us as the audience, like, this is the match, this is the one you're gonna love. This, you don't worry about the other ones. The other ones are filler. This is the one. Kind of bugs me.
Yeah,
Just
and I don't know. This one just seemed a little bit too silly for me,
yeah.
really, with the horror show at Extreme Rules. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, again, like slightly pulling away from that side of it, it concerns me the fact that they've made changes at the last minute. Like even just okay, maybe Vince just had a day in the editing room and just tore them apart. Like remove Kyrie Sane from that. I want to change the way that title. Maybe they were like, for fuck's sake, we've got to amuse him because he's the boss. But no, seriously, like I don't know if you're making changes to that sort of stuff at this point. It makes me worry. Like, is the pay-per-view even that sort of set up and that solid? Like from a storyline point of view, are they still tooling it? Are they still fucking about? Makes you wonder whether it's going to be a bit of a mess anyway.
Yeah, doesn't fill you with hope, does it?
It doesn't. Man, you WWE. So the next one I've got, Carl, is you've probably noticed that Shayna Baszler has disappeared. I think the last thing we saw Shayna Baszler do was have a go at Natalya or whatever, because you know she was basically being a cunt about the whole baby thing with Becky, and then Natalya tried to call her on it, and Natalya got battered, as Natalya tends to for some reason these days. And then we've not really seen anything of it since. And now it's since been confirmed, certainly from the rumor mill side of things anyway, that WWE Creative have apparently come out and said that they've nothing for her at the minute, which is the same sort of kiss of death that they gave to Cedric Alexander and Ricochet not too long ago. And really just to get your thoughts on that. I mean, it's a bit of a shame. I've not been a big fan of her on the main roster, but I understand she was quite popular on NXT. I could be wrong there, because she left NXT before I started watching it like properly, you know. But I don't know. Seems like she was a Paul Heyman gal, and he was all for pushing her. She had a great show at Elimination. Like she tore through the women's roster at Elimination Chamber, and now it's a case of nothing for her. Seems odd.
Yeah,
Especially because they've got. Bear in mind, they've got time to have storylines where Natalya throws tantrums. That's the stuff they've got time for, but they've not got anything for Shayna. Nothing at all.
Well, exactly. That's the thing that jumps out for me is, you know, really have the creative team got time for anyone? Because you look at the shit that gets put out on telly every week, and you've got to kind of ask yourself, well, what are they spending the time doing? Do you know what I mean? I think
that's actually an annoyingly good point. She's on Raw. You've got 3 hours. You've got nothing but time.
Like honestly, but I don't know. It's a tough one. As anyone who listens to the show or watches the show knows, I am quite critical of Shayna Baszler, and I'm not critical of. I'm critical of the way she was booked, I guess, because for me, she's not a talker. She can't talk, and that's fine. Not everyone is. So if you get a mouthpiece for her and have her as this kind of, and it's not something you see a lot in the women's division is having like someone like an absolute monster heel woman with a mouthpiece for them. Do you know what I mean? You see it all the time in the male division. Brock obviously is the most recent example, but you've had it for years.
And this is the funny thing, because like Brock's advocate is Paul Heyman, and Paul Heyman was Shayna. He was all for Shayna Baszler. You think, all due respect to Paul, you think he would have seen that as well, because she is not a good talker. We've seen a few different promos or whichever, and it's never, not one of them's ever landed.
No. And I think it's going to be hard for her now, I think, to come back into the fold, because it does baffle me, because if you look at how they're booking the women's division at the minute, you know, they've got Asuka taking on bloody Sasha from a different brand. Do you know what I mean? It's like, well, you can't find time to build anyone up. You know, God knows what's happening with the clusterfuck of Liv Morgan and fucking Ruby Riot, and then you've got the Lana and Natty thing going on for some apparent reason.
Liv is actually currently just wandering around backstage trying to find herself.
Maybe she's literally just lost. Like, you know, she hasn't showed up again, like, to the performance center. She's just in the middle of Orlando somewhere, like in the woods, just has no idea like how to get back to. She's just trying to find where the fuck she is. But yeah, I don't know. I just I do feel, I think, for Shayna, because they clearly were going to do something here with Becky and Shayna over time, and then Becky's gone, and I don't know. I don't even know why they can't do Shayna and Asuka, to be honest. But I just think, yeah, it's a strange one. I don't know where she goes from here, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of annoys me with creative because, like, it's on them. It's their fucking fault in a way. Like, all right, she's not great on the mic, but they're the ones responsible for creating these storylines. And they're like, oh, we've nothing for, like, yeah, that's on you guys, man. This is, like you say, she could have easily fitted in with the Asuka stuff. She did reasonably well against Becky, although, again, the weaker part of it was her mic skills. And as much as I found Becky Lynch quite cringe towards the end of it all, she was much better on the mic. You can't deny that. And sadly, she pales massively in comparison to that. But she was good in the ring. She, like, that Elimination Chamber match really cemented her as as a threat, and that was executed really well. And it's just a shame because she can work with what she's got in the ring. And I think, as you hit the nail on the head, yeah, she just needs a decent mouthpiece and a decent story to get behind. Such a shame.
Okay, so my next one this week is, we talked about it earlier with obviously the Nia Jax botch from a while ago, but basically it's been kind of highlighted the amount of botches that we've been seeing over the last couple of weeks on WWE programming. Quite recently we had the Lince Dorado botch with Big E on SmackDown. We've had Asuka and Charlotte having some botches in there. Sasha Banks having some botches.
Did you see that Sasha Banks botch?
It was a bit silly, wasn't
it? Thing is, though, like, on some level, I'm like, that was saved really well as well. It's one of them sort of, if you didn't pay attention, you'd miss it sort of thing. Like, I don't know who's responsible for saving it, whether Sasha managed to get her ankles in there so it still looked like it hit, or whether it was actually Asuka. Was it Asuka she was against? Actually sort of saving that move. But yeah, I was actually almost impressed at how they managed to sort of save that, because how it's the Meteora, the move, isn't it? I believe it's called.
Yeah.
And how that's meant to go. It's meant to be from the knees. So, you can tell it was a botch, but I don't know. I was quite impressed with how they, because the the drop kick to Charlotte from Asuka, that was shocking. Like, you noticed that one a mile away because she just completely missed. But the Sasha one, I was actually quite impressed with how they managed to sort of save that.
Yeah, and I think it's weird because it's kind of polarizing to a degree, because you've got, on the one hand, because I've lost count now whether or not they're live, whether it's taped or what the fuck's going on. But whenever they do have the luxury of taping things, as we know, they make them reshoot shit over and over again. Kevin Dunn is a psychopath. That's what he likes to do. So how are these botches still making their way through unless it is live and stuff?
I know this is the bit that loses me now, because it's like, well, you've been pre-taping stuff so that you can get ahead of yourself, but then we're still getting stuff like this. So, like, are we back on some of them live? I don't know. I know they was heading that direction, weren't they? Because they wanted SummerSlam to be live. Probably not going to happen, but they wanted it to be live. So, like, I don't know, maybe they had started putting a few live shows in there and I've just not noticed, because some of the stuff's still pre-taped.
Yeah, strange.
But shocking botches, funny botches, but at least no one got majorly hurt, because I didn't see Nia involved in any of them.
Yeah, it's a very good point.
All right, so this one is, for me, this next one, I suppose it's news, but it was more, for me, interest in the fact that I couldn't agree with Ric Flair more, and I think it's probably moans you and I have similarly had. Probably not on the podcast, because it was a while ago, but certainly things we've acknowledged. And basically, Ric Flair has got to talking on the Roman Reigns Undertaker match, and he's acknowledged that it was a really good match. Like, from that perspective, like, he was initially saying, like, basically Undertaker's a perfectionist, so even a good match, if it wasn't great and he knows he's done something, like, he knows there's certain elements that weren't right, then he'll beat himself up because he's a perfectionist, and he thinks the match itself was really good. And I don't actually. We've talked about Undertaker Roman Reigns, and we cite it as a weak match, and it was, but. And I've mentioned it before, it's because you could see the pain in the Undertaker. Like, he wasn't really in a condition to wrestle. And it's kind of almost sad to see the match, really. But nevertheless, he's in this particular case, he's mentioning the fact that Roman had so much heat coming off that match, like, to the point that when he come out the following week to cut his promo, where he's like, basically, this is my yard now, he could not get a word in with the audience. That's how livid they were about this. He cites this as, this was more impactful and more emotional than Brock ending the streak, which I don't know, but it was impactful. And he basically is just saying, like, from a creative point of view, and you can't blame Roman, because Roman, as we know, and as he has said himself, he comes in and he does what he's asked of. So he is not the type of guy to take risks, and we know that, right? So it's down to WWE creative, but basically the fact that they did not use that momentum and work on that heat and turn him heel, he thinks is an absolute shame, a travesty that they didn't. That is the type of thing that could have made Roman's career for the rest of his days. Like, that's how big that heel move could have been. And that's essentially what Rick said in this. I'm paraphrasing, but that's essentially what he said in this interview, is that, that it was such a wasted opportunity, the whole heat he was getting from that, and the fact he did not capitalize. And yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think we've said a similar thing to that Roman needed to turn heel. And he definitely needed to turn heel then, but he's needed to turn heel for a while, because he was becoming unliked, mostly because he had favor with backstage, and you could see it because they were pushing him and pushing him and pushing him, and he could have leaned into it. But this is certainly a moment that they could have leaned into it. So I've put it on today, mostly because Rick brought it up, but because I couldn't agree more. It's nice to see that, Ric Flair, especially a legend in the business, he knows what he's talking about with the business, and he's acknowledging and seeing that as well.
It baffles me. Like, so they did it with Cena, and now they've done it with Roman Reigns. You look at some of the greatest guys of all time. They've all had runs as heels and faces. I can't fathom why Vince never turned Cena at any point, and is never going to turn Roman. Like, I get it, they're a cash cow, they sell merch, great, but you want to really elevate them. Like, if you think about it, The Rock came in as, Rocky Maivia, little blue chip, the crowd shit all over him. He cut his teeth and got over as a heel. And then because everyone loved the work he did as a heel, when he was switched back face again, he was a megastar. Now, Roman is Rocky Maivia. You know what I mean? So if they would have let him,
The Rock.
Yeah, and then, as soon as that happens, then they can just go, okay, fine, people are behind it now, they get it, let's switch him back face again, and you'll get a reaction. And it's a crazy one, but where appropriate, you know what I mean? I think it can really make someone and push them onto the next level. So I completely agree with Rick. I don't think it was obviously the Brock thing was way more shocking, but you could accept it because it's Brock Lesnar. So if anyone was going to beat the streak, that made sense. But when Roman also beat him, they shat all over that moment because the streak was already broken, and then you've got this guy who's forced down your throat, breaking it. Like, it was the perfect time with that heat, similar to the heat he had when he won the Royal Rumble, and even The Rock couldn't get him a cheer. Do you know what I mean? He's had times there where it made perfect sense to just turn him, but yeah, I don't know, wasted opportunity, I think.
Massively. And yeah, you know what? I'd love to see him come back and go into a heel run. It'd be, I don't know quite how you'd write it at this point, but he still could go for that. And I think you made a good point. Like, for me, you look at the likes of Jericho and The Rock, and they're like, I preferred them as heels, I'll be honest. I know you certain people like Stone Cold, who's always kind of been more of a tweener, like does bad guy things, but he's kind of liked. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's up against the McMahons, wasn't he, most of the time? So he was kind of the good guy. But he couldn't be more right, Rick. And we'll see what happens with Roman. I imagine probably going back into the main title scene when he comes back, and probably as a face, because it's WWE. Care about the merch first. Merch first, Carl.
No surprises here. Okay, so the next one I've got is a bit of a weird one. So MVP posted something, a video on his Instagram of Bobby Lashley attacking a civilian. So, kayfabe is alive. I've no real comment on this. I don't know what it was really kind of furthering as such in terms of doing it, but I don't know. It's a very, very strange thing to do, to try and get over via social media with your character as well.
There are certain things I'm really puzzled at with Bobby. The first one being, like, they want to build him up as a heel, but they want to build him up as a beast, right? So the nearest example is Brock Lesnar. He's a beast, right? But for me, the massive difference between the way the way they tend to book Brock and the way they book Bobby is Brock comes along and he'll take on the big fish and beat the big fish because he's a beast, right? So whoever's the champ, he comes along and he'll try and ruin them, right? But what they're doing with Bobby is they're having him, like, pick on R-Truth or pick on a random civilian. It's like, right, so you're a bully then? You can't Like you couldn't beat Drew McIntyre. You're not good against anyone who can actually wrestle. So you just go around picking on people who you know you can beat. And it comes across like they're booking him like a shitbag. But they want you to think he's a beast. But that's not how you book a beast. It puzzles me. And the second bit really for me is like it literally just went, yeah, we're not going to be in the main title scene now. We're going to go for the US title. It really felt like they were carrying on with the Drew thing. The way that the match they had ended a little bit screwy. So I was like, okay, they're going back to this. And then now I'm going after Apollo now. It's like, okay, well, you definitely couldn't take Drew then. Fair enough. Really unusual booking for me. I understand they want to get him as a heel, and they're succeeding in that. He's not likable, but do you class him as a credible threat or a main event star when it's like, well, I couldn't be that guy, so I'm going to go and pick on some weaker people or some actual people who aren't even wrestlers now, apparently.
Well, exactly. I don't know. It does. I completely agree. It baffles me entirely. I just don't think they've got any long-term vision at all. And I know it's hard maybe to have that kind of long-term view on things when you don't know what you're going to have available or how things are going to play out and stuff. Like, to a degree, I get it, but at the same time, they've just fucking gone mental with it. Like now, Drew's fighting Dolph out of nowhere. He's had to fight he's been fighting the Big Show. Like, it's just
it's
so
moves
random.
like that. It feels so panic stations that they've gone, right, no, let's move, let's grab Dolph over to Raw and we'll see if that works. It's like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, it's just random. Like, have they even ever fully set up how that works? Like, when's your trade window actually close on trading superstars to different brands? Because it doesn't happen all the time, but every once in a while they want to fuck around. I don't get that either. We don't forget the draft anymore.
They've got that weird thing, haven't they, where you can borrow a superstar, as like Corbin did it the other week or whatever. Do you remember? It was like,
just
who knows?
Yeah, sure. And yet we still have the superstar shake-up every once in a while, which is basically the draft, but they don't want to call it the draft because they stopped doing the draft now. But it's just an absolute fucking mess. I don't.
Well, that's it. And I know obviously that this news piece is around Bobby Lashley, but for me, the crazy baffling thing is, like, look at Drew's reign since he became champ. It's gone, okay, Big Show, Seth Rollins. He had Brock, Big Show, Seth Rollins, Bobby Lashley, MVP, Dolph Ziggler. Like, you know what I mean? Like, who is the legit main event, like, threat for Drew? Like, who's that high level match that you're like, holy shit, this is going to be incredible? Like, fair dues, I'll give Seth his due because I thought he did quite well, but that didn't last that long. They've obviously tried it with Bobby.
This was the thing. Like, for me, it looked really good. He won the championship, and then he went into a program with Seth. Went into a program with Big Show that ended very quickly. Went into a program with Seth, and that looked really good because Seth is a main event star. And we're getting to a point now, and I'm worried about his title run. He's defended it successfully a few times, but against who are these people? Do you know what I mean? Like, Bobby's like, all right, we know who Bobby is. He's been in WWE before. He's this is his second time in WWE, but at the end of the day, he's still, no offense to him, he's still not a main event star. He's still trying to get there. He might be main event on TNA, sure, but he's never had the big time in WWE.
No, and they haven't got main event stars on Raw. They just haven't got them. So it's
There's the trouble, though. The ones they've got are busy fighting other fucking legends.
Yeah.
Because we have Randy Orton there. We did have Edge. Both really good options. I would have liked to have seen Edge against Seth myself, but even that, you could have used Edge before they decided to put him up against Randy again and let him injure himself. I don't know. There are, like, Randy Orton just skulks around. He's a credible legend. He can put on a great match. Why wasn't that ever a thing?
Yeah.
I'd sooner see that than him and Bobby.
Defo. And you've got obviously Kevin Owens and stuff is potentially, could be at that level, but he's decided to stay home and stuff now as well. But I literally know
but even before that,
look
how good a match he was putting on for the US title. Like, that's the kind of match Kevin Owens could put on. So, like you say, why wasn't he in that scene?
I know they were going to do something with Jinder, weren't they? And then he got injured again, unfortunately. But
unless this is all a ploy and we're going to find out that Drew's been injuring people before they even get to the ring.
Maybe. Who knows? But yeah, I do struggle to understand the long-term kind of plans for the main title scene, but I don't think obviously Lashley is it. And it's crazy, as you said, for them to kind of build him up as though he was going to be it and then have this kind of screwy finish and then just go, okay, now he's back for the US title. It's weird.
Yeah, very weird. So the next one I've got, Carl, is you might have seen it, but we have I love the way when you read anywhere about this, they always refer to him as former WWE superstar. I mean, technically true, but I think what made him famous was ECW, wasn't it? So why don't we call him former ECW star? But anyway, nevertheless, Taz is currently working for AEW as sometimes a commentator, most of the time the advocate for Brian Cage. Now, basically, he's getting a lot of flack at the minute. He's arguing with people on social media, and largely because of a comment he made in which he, in referring to the COVID-19 testing, and I think in respect to fears of people sort of, accidentally coming into AEW or accidentally passing the virus over, a lot of response to sort of, obviously Moxley lives with Renee Young and Renee Young's tested positive, and Taz's response was basically that we don't run a sloppy shop. Obviously popping a shot at the way WWE do things. And to be fair to Taz, AEW have been fantastic on the testing front. Like the way it seems to work, everyone who attends, not just Superstar, everyone who attends is tested before they get anywhere near. And to be fair to them, the system seems to work because you don't get any reports like that with WWE with AEW at the minute. And look at Moxley. Look at the example being Moxley. There's the slight possibility he's not tested positive, but the slight possibility. So they're trying to distance him, and he's the main event star. He's their champion, and they're trying to distance him. All right, they want to get that main event match, and I understand that, but they're just trying not to take any risks with that, and they are going to test him before that match and cancel it if need be, which I think is happening this week, isn't it? So yeah, they don't run a sloppy shop, but he's basically taken a lot of fire for that because typically people like, AEW adjusters, but and all this. And to be fair, there's a rumor. I don't know if it's true or not. There's a rumor that an amount of fans were attending Fyter Fest and hadn't been tested. I don't know how true that is, but some of the people in attendance allegedly hadn't been. Now, again, it's all sort of speculation and backbiting and going, well, this show is better than this show and so on like that. The fact of the matter is WWE have had a lot more cases and a lot more problems than AEW when it comes to the testing side of things. But what do you make of Taz's comments and subsequent heat, as it were?
I thought his promo was fantastic. I loved it. I popped for it. So yeah, I don't know. These people who are very like WWE, all right, it's fuck it, it's wrestling. Who cares, right? And for me, I thought Taz, that promo where he mentioned it was a shot to WWE. Don't you can't. There's no denying it. But I don't think it was like a petty shot as such. It was just like a shots fired kind of thing.
And this is the reality of it. That guess what, guys? He's a heel. He's currently being a heel. He's saying heel things.
Exactly. And I think it wasn't just like out of nowhere. You can argue some of the Brodie Lee stuff that they've done with mocking Vince and stuff has been a bit like, okay, that's petty and it's out of nowhere. But
I take your point. This is relevance, isn't it?
Yeah, it fed into the whole storyline with Moxley and Cage and about how Moxley's just using it as an excuse to kind of not get his ass whooped by fucking Brian Cage, who's a beast. So I thought it was fine. I enjoyed it. I think anyone who's kind of butthurt over it just needs to get over themselves. It was just a heel promo at the end of the day.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. So, what's next now?
So, the next one on my list was former WWE star Sarah Logan has been teasing a huge announcement. So, I know here on the notes, one that you initially thought that could be was a potential move to MMA, which was actually a pretty good shout, to be fair.
Yeah. I mean, she had been doing some MMA training, which is sort of where the speculation come from.
However, that secret is now out, and she has announced with Eric, one half of the Viking Raiders, that they are expecting a child. So big congratulations to the pair of them. I kind of guess it makes a little bit of sense now to a degree why she wanted to retire after WWE let her go.
There was not a lot of problem from her. So, she sort of just it was quite a quiet sort of exit, wasn't it? So it makes a lot of sense, really.
Yeah. But no, I mean, obviously huge congratulations to the pair of them.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah, I don't know. I think at least there's a little bit of a positive light at the end of the tunnel for her, because I felt quite hard done by on the fact that she was released, because I don't think she'd done anything necessarily to deserve the release.
And it felt odd as well because we've still we're sort of now having a bit of a Riot Squad reunion in a way, but she's not a part of it. But again, it makes a bit more sense now because she wouldn't bother coming back for that because she's got other things going on now. But exactly. It seemed odd on WWE's part to release her in the first place. But I suppose most of it was quite odd from.
Yeah.
So I take it, is that a win for the Viking Raiders? Are they beating the Street Profits now? It's part of the competition, right?
Yeah. I mean, who knows? Until we find out the reason why what's the face hasn't been used in recent.
Bianca Belair.
Yeah.
Right. Sorry, the next one's mine, isn't it? Just in the world of my own things. Right. So hold on to your hats here, Carl. I might be giving you a spoiler. I might not. In fact, I'm going to try and do this non-spoiler, right?
Okay.
And then I'm going to spoil it at the end, right? So, firstly, I'll ask you, Carl, like, because people can fast forward or skip me or not listen to me at all, which is probably the preferred option. But there's a potential spoiler for an NXT match. Would you like that spoiler?
I'm down for it.
Okay, guys, this is spoiler territory for anyone listening. So if you're bothered about the main event of NXT this week, so the Adam Cole thingy match, skip forward about, well, it's me and Carl, so skip forward about an hour or so, and we'll probably be done talking about it. So essentially, the Great American Bash second night main event was pre-taped, and as you know, Performance Center talents are currently filling out the audience. One particular Performance Center talent, Carl, whose name I don't know, and probably will struggle to pronounce, so bear with me. Suarav Gurjar. I totally butchered that. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. Right. Anyway, NXT Performance Center talent has accidentally posted a picture of a particular person winning a particular pair of championship belts. And celebrating in the ring. It looks very much like they've won it, and I'll spoil it now for anyone who's still listening and might be taking the risk. The picture showed Keith Lee, celebrating, confetti, all that kind of stuff. It's quite clearly, that's the way it is. And apparently this particular Performance Center talent posted it because they did not realize that it hadn't already aired. Whoops. The post has since been deleted. You can't find it now. Although, thanks to the internet, it's been screen grabbed an awful lot, so you can find it by other means. But this would suggest quite strongly that Keith Lee is going to be the one who takes the win on Wednesday. So the question I'm going to ask you, Carl, is do you think WWE will react to this and change the results?
No, I don't think so. I do think, however, we might not be aware who Sorav Gajar is at the moment, but when he gets featured imminently, I think we'll know pretty much who he is. But yeah, what a monumental fuck up. But I don't think they'll do anything like to change it or anything like that.
I'm putting this on Kevin Dunn's shoulders as well. How can you ban face masks and you don't ban phones?
Well, yeah,
for fuck's sake.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a bit silly, isn't it? I think, but I mean, bloody hell, it's a bit of a. I don't know. I'm a little surprised by the result, to be fair, because I thought they would. I feel like Great American Bash just came out of nowhere as a reaction to Fyter Fest, as opposed. I wasn't expecting anything big to happen on it, so yeah, massive for Keith if it is going to go that way.
I'm a bit torn, right? Because I was all for Karrion Kross coming after Cole, right? And similarly, I'm all for Cole heading to the main event. People don't like calling it the main shows anymore, do they? Or certainly the main event, which is the fuck up I just said. They're still the bigger shows. SmackDown and Raw are still the bigger shows. Bottom line, right? And I'm all for him heading to one of those. I mean, how good would it be to see him go to Raw and actually give them a shot on the arm as someone who could be in the title scene? All right, he's the biggest thing on NXT. It doesn't mean he's necessarily should be a big fish in WWE Raw, but who else have they got at the minute?
Do you know what I feel is a big shame is that I'd actually prefer to see him on SmackDown, but Raw is the one who's clamoring out for some high quality talent. Like for me, I would love to see AJ and Adam Cole for the IC title. Like, take my money.
To be fair,
Daniel Bryan, Adam Cole. Let me have it. So yeah.
I mean, when you think about it, despite the fact that SmackDown do fuck things up a lot, they've got a much better roster at the minute on this reduced COVID roster anyway. But yeah, I mean, I get what you mean. I'm quite surprised with the outcome as is the spoiler, but I don't know, like, it kind of makes sense to me. Keith Lee's he's had a massive run with the North American title. He's heading towards that, top guy on NXT front, isn't he? You know what I mean? It just makes sense going forward. And I actually genuinely wonder what that means. Is Karrion Kross going to turn his attention to Keith Lee then, or is he going to carry on going after Cole because he wanted Cole, not the belt? I don't actually know. But yeah, I mean, there's interesting possibilities with that. I can't say I'm overly upset with the results, but yeah, it is. I suppose it is somewhat shocking.
Yeah. I think it'd just be interesting to see where Cole goes from here. Like, does he stick around and have something with Carrion before he leaves, or is this the last we see of him on NXT now? Find out.
So you're asking, will he carry on with Carry On?
Whee.
Sorry, it's just bad puns. I'm sorry.
Bay and Carry On.
Carry on, baby.
Okay, so the next one I've got on my list. So apparently the hacker gimmick is still a thing. So, you know,
Has anyone told WWE?
Well, fucking hell, great point. I can't remember how many weeks ago it was now when we first started seeing these little things, and at the time I was quite excited for it. As I think I said, I'm a big fan of these like kind of little things where you try and figure stuff out and stuff like that. And you know, for a while I was quite interested in it. I think we highlighted a couple of possibilities. You know, obviously Mustafa Ali being one of the big ones. And we started, you know, I was trying to decipher some of the clues and stuff because it was full of different
clues.
Like
locations and potential.
Yeah, like all coordinates and things. So it was cool to kind of figure out, and then it just kind of died a death. And then you kind of pointed out in one of the other weeks that Mustafa Ali looked like he'd been traded over to Raw.
Yeah, he was listed as I think it's him and Dolph have been traded for AJ. Was it? It's something like that. They justified the move.
I don't even think they justified it for Ali because I know it was Bobby Roode and Dolph.
Oh, sorry, it was Bobby Roode and Dolph. So what was the Ali one? Yeah,
Ali, fuck knows.
I forgot about Bobby. How many people did they trade for AJ? Wow.
Oh, exactly. I mean, I'm surprised we haven't seen Bobby Roode yet either. I mean, fucking hell, like, you know, Jesus. Just bring back Glorious Bobby. He was good.
He's going to wait his turn. He's not going to be rude.
Hey. But yeah, so apparently this hacker thing is still a thing. So, you know, we thought it was going to be Mustafa Ali, and we figured that since he'd been traded to Raw, that was why. But he posted another another tweet because he's obviously got the handle the message WWE, and he's posted "I see your lies," and it's another one of these videos. It does contain both Raw and SmackDown superstars, which it has done for a little bit of time now. So I don't know. It's crazy, I think, that they're not still pushing it on TV, but the fact that it's still happening on social media indicates that they are going to still do something with it. So I don't know. I feel like at a time where they do need some star power and stuff, Mustafa Ali was getting over quite a bit on his own.
He was, yeah.
You know, who knows? But
it's it's a really baffling one, that, because like I personally feel like it's been gone for too many weeks now. Like they're gonna have to remind people what was going on. That's how long they've left it, as far as I'm concerned. I appreciate the social media side of it, but there are a lot of fans there who don't bother with the social media side and just watch the shows. And there's just literally been nothing for weeks. So yeah, be interesting to see what happens. Nice to know it's not dead though, because it was intriguing.
Yeah.
So I've got one for you, Cal. Do you remember Brian Pillman?
Of course I do. The loose cannon.
Yeah. Do you remember Brian Pillman Jr.?
Yeah.
No. Me neither. But yeah, Brian Pillman Jr., Carl, is set to make his AEW, albeit AEW Dark, debut, and he'll be debuting against Sean Spears. So that's the crux of the news on that one. Like, but interesting to see, you know, another sort of generation of wrestler. But I'm interested in the fact that it's against Sean Spears as well, because they've been obviously trying to push him sort of with the whole glove thing.
Do you know what? I haven't even seen anything on that for ages since he did that.
Well, I'll be honest, there's literally been nothing, I don't think, has there? And now he's on Dark.
Unless stuff happens on Dark, you know what I mean? Which, fair play, I'll hold my hands up, and you will too. There's that much wrestling we have to watch as it is. You know, if we had all the time in the world, then we would love to watch all the shows, even like New Japan and stuff. But
that is a point, you know, everyone, while we still mark out about AEW, we currently watch 3 WWE shows and 1 AEW, and we don't bother with Dark. So that's how much we prioritize WWE. Yeah. Although I might drop SmackDown just to watch Dark, because fuck it, why not?
I think I might do that with Raw. No,
but what do you make of it? Of it being Brian Pillman Jr. anyway? What do you make of their acquisition? It's obviously got the name.
Yeah, but I'm excited for it. You know, Brian Pillman was he was you know, from a personality standpoint, and obviously he was, you know, trained by the Hearts and stuff like that at 1.2. So he was a great talent, and he was very underutilized, I think. And then when he obviously came up with this loose cannon persona, and it's a really like, if you don't know much about him, I really recommend you read up on him, because he basically wanted to become this character so bad. He started just doing it in everyday life. Like, people didn't know whether he was being serious. He was working everyone, like, all the time in the locker room and everything. And he negotiated with Bischoff to let him work an ECW show and let him work like a WWF show. And I'm still under contract with you though, Bischoff, and basically used it to get everyone bidding for him and bring him over to the WWF. Do you know what I mean? And then,
Nice.
Unfortunately, he got himself into a car accident and had to have his ankle fused, and he was never really the same after that, which is a shame. But from a charisma standpoint, he was incredible. So look, I mean, if his kid has got half the charisma that his dad had, then it can only be a good thing. Do you know what I mean? I'm sure from a wrestling ability standpoint, he'll be somewhat decent if he's been signed by AEW as well. So
they must see something in him, I guess. Don't get me wrong, I'm not just saying because AEW are interested they're going to be a winner, because not always the case, I'll be honest. But no, I'm intrigued, and you're our resident wrestling historian, Carl, so I figured it'd mean more to you than it does to me, because I never really was on the wrestling scene with the Brian Pillman era. As you know, I was late Attitude, early Reality era for me. But we all know the name, and it'd be an interesting one to see, and hopefully, he's going to be an interesting one. It'd be interesting to know what he does to Sean Spears. I might not watch Dark, but I'll find out what happened in that match.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested to see how that goes. Okay, so the final point I've got down, unless anything else has bubbled up since we last did this, is so CM Punk basically, as we know, AEW did make him an offer. And apparently the reason Punk didn't take AEW up on it was because they weren't willing to pay him the amount that he wanted. What an arrogant prick. What a prick. He literally had
I'm better at this
Punk.
point. How long had he been out of the wrestling world at that point as well?
Yeah, Jesus Christ.
Right. I mean, I'm intrigued. I'm really intrigued to know, and I never will, but I'm really intrigued to know what they were offering him, because it's like, well, was he like thinking he should get Jericho money or not getting Jericho money? Was he wanting more than Jericho? I'm intrigued to know what they were offering. And how much would you offer Punk? Like you say, he had the summer of Punk, and he was probably the best thing in WWE at one of WWE's weakest points. But in the grand scheme, I don't want to be unfair to him. I suppose he's a legend in the business. A lot of people will know his name, but I don't know, how much money do you command? How much money did WWE backstage pay him?
Fuck knows. Well, apparently it was Fox, wasn't it? It was not WWE. But look, I was a fan of Punk, and the Money in the Bank match with Cena was fantastic. The pipe bomb was fantastic. He was hot stuff for a while, and he was like, okay, this guy could be like one of the next big things. Absolutely. He dropped the ball. Like, fair dues, he wasn't helped. They booked him against Kevin Nash. They booked him in weird angles with John Laurinaitis and stuff. Like, it wasn't a great time. But unfortunately, it was shit. Like, and then he left, decided he was going to become, a UFC fighter.
That
And
did
fucking
not
got
go
battered
well.
twice. And then his stock just dropped to the point where, would he get a pop if he came back today? Absolutely. Is he anywhere near the star he was during that time? No, nowhere near. So, yeah.
Do you know what annoys me, right? In all fairness to Punk, I would be totally on board if he'd rocked up at AEW, right? He had signed the deal, rocked up at AEW, and ended up in a program against the likes of Cody or against the likes of Jericho. I'd have been all for that, because you cannot deny CM Punk knows how to work the crowd and he has got the mic skills, And I dare say he's a decent wrestler. I'm not going to argue he's the best, because you look at the likes of AJ Styles, you look at the likes of Daniel Bryan, and you go, they're fucking brilliant and gifted in the ring. And I'm not trying to discredit Punk's ability in the ring, but I don't recall ever watching a match and feeling like that. Do you know what I mean? Whereas you like when we watched AJ versus Daniel Bryan, like you see that and you go, fucking hell, they're incredible in the ring. And that's just as I say, I'm not putting CM Punk's in-ring ability down, but the main thing that would make me mark out for it would be you've got the likes of Jericho on the mic versus Punk on the mic. And we saw it in WWE, but it's a different world now. AEW would offer them a different opportunity, and I'd have loved to have seen it. And it's a real shame that he's basically overpriced himself.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. If he rocked up in AEW tomorrow, I'd be fucking all over it, and I would mark out for it. But yeah, as you said, like he's not the fucking superstar that he thinks he is in his head anymore. And
I think too much time's gone, really.
Yeah, and to be honest, he became a bit of a laughingstock as well in the wrestling world because of the way he carried himself and stuff afterwards. And don't get me wrong, it like the way Brock Lesnar translated into mixed martial arts, like that was a phenomenal feat, and fair play for Punk, to go, do you know what, I'm gonna make a debut, never doing this before on the grandest stage, like absolutely got my respect. But fucking hell, he thinks he's he thinks he's the best in the world. Literally, he's living his gimmick, and unfortunately, he ain't. And while I would mark out to fuck, and I'd love to see him back doing it, like how arrogant have you got to be to? Because they wouldn't have been paying him fucking pennies, you know what I mean? It would have been a decent amount. And
that's the thing.
Yeah.
And it's bear in mind, it's a decent amount from a company that really, they haven't got the pockets that WWE have got. They've got Tony Khan behind them, obviously, but, the Khan family are not going to spend all their money on AEW, so it's not like you can go, well, they've got the Khan billions. They haven't.
Yeah.
They've got an amount of money. Admittedly, I don't know how much, and it'll be a fair amount, but, McMahon is made by the WWE. He will put the money he needs to into the WWE, and WWE might be in a position to offer Punk a lot more, but if they wanted him, they'd have done it. All fairness, and it's a real shame. It is a real shame because I'm not even sure what he wants. Like, you see him interacting on Twitter, and you think he's clearly still sort of, he was involved with WWE backstage. He tries to make comments to certain wrestlers, tries to build a bit of heat almost. I think in a deliberate effort. And you go, well, do you want back in the wrestling industry or not?
Yeah, I honestly don't think he knows himself.
Just wants to be known still, I guess. I don't know. But a crying shame in a lot of ways. But yeah, unbelievable, isn't it? Like, we're going to pay him. Fine.
Exactly.
If that's what you think you're worth, Punk. But I guess AEW didn't. And I think you're right, Carl. I think it's certainly the last one for me. Don't think anything's cropped up today that I'm aware of. So that will be the news for the week.
That is the news.
I have to start putting some news sound effects into this.
We need to go proper news anchory, don't we?
Or just slowly get more jolly as it put the really serious stuff on at first. And then slowly get towards the end and and lastly, a cat on a surfboard.
Yeah, we should really build the suspense. It'd be tonight, a former wrestler demands billions of dollars from AEW and is denied. Find out more at the end of the program. Etc.
So, one wrestler's career has been brutally murdered this afternoon. Anyway.
Well, hello, Carl and Anthony. Hey, it's the hardcore legend Mick Foley saying hello. What a beautiful afternoon it is. Wow, gorgeous May afternoon. There's a view of the river at the Foley compound. Just want to say hello to you guys and let you know that I'm looking forward to listening to you on A to the K, the podcast. I am not yet exposed to much in the world of podcasting, but I think I'm going to start. I hear great things about you guys. I appreciate you being fans. I'm going to go out on a limb and just guess that you guys are big wrestling fans, so I'm going to thank you for your support over the years. Have a nice day.
This week's episode is brought to you by floriday.co.uk, where you can get all the latest news about Florida, Disney, and Universal Studios, as well as valuable tips and touring plans to get the most out of your Florida holiday. That's floriday.co.uk, the sunshine state of mind.